Natasha and Her Illegitimate Child in a Muslim Society. A novel by Dr. A. Ahmed. This story is narrated in 2 books. Book 2. Copyrights. All rights are reserved. No part of this book may be reproduced, stored in a retrieval system, or transmitted in any form or by any means without the prior written permission of the author, except by a reviewer who may quote brief passages in a review to be printed in a newspaper, magazine, school journal, or university article. This novel is a work of fiction, but the entire story is based on the actual life of a Muslim family in Sudan. Therefore, all names, characters, places, and incidents are either the product of the author's imagination or are used fictitiously. Any resemblance to actual persons, living or dead, events, or locales is entirely coincidental. Chapter 11. The Bastard Daughter. The injustice that had been done to Haja Fatima through the Sharia law of inheritance added to the righteous indignation of the Canadian girl towards the misogynistic teachings of Islam about women. As she promised her female relative, Natasha waited until Haja Fatima's house was sold and she moved to her brother's house. By then, Natasha has completed 9 months in Sudan. According to her academic fieldwork, she must live 1 year in a Muslim country and collect data for writing her PhD dissertation about the life of women in a Muslim society. Although Natasha knew that she has collected more than enough information about the evil practices on Muslim women, still she must stay for 3 more months in order to meet the requirements of her fieldwork. Accordingly, she followed her kind relative to her new dwelling place. It is the house of Haja Fatima's youngest brother. Unfortunately, in the new house neither the husband nor his wife is happy to have Natasha in their residence. They are not friendly and loving as Haja Fatima and Shama. The brother of Haja Fatima is a cousin brother of Natasha's late grandfather Dr. Sami Shams al-Din. He is a very mean man. From day 1, he looked suspiciously at Natasha and then told her on her face that he has never heard anyone of his family saying before that we are having relatives living in Canada. Therefore, he demanded that Natasha should prove her blood relationship to him and to his sister Haja Fatima. Natasha told him that her late grandfather was born and brought up in Wad Madani city, and when he grew up, he went to Russia and studied medicine in a university at Moscow city. While he was studying in Moscow, he fell in love with a Russian woman by the name of Nadia Alexandrov and married her. Her grandfather and his Russian wife got a daughter which they named her Natasha. She then said to him, "She is the daughter of Natasha." The man asked the Canadian girl to tell him where her mother is now. Natasha said to him, her mother died shortly after she gave birth to her. After her untimely death, her grandfather decided to keep the memory of his only beloved daughter, and hence named her Natasha. The little information that Natasha has innocently revealed about her family resurrected that long time ago family scandal and filled the heart of the man with indescribable anger, which turned his face into a demon. Therefore, the man asked Natasha to tell him more about herself. Natasha knew that the man has suspected that she is the illegitimate child that her mother begot without the sanctity of the Islamic halal marriage bond. So, she hesitated for a few minutes before she told him everything about her family. The man screamed on her face, Natasha, the daughter of Sami Shams al-Din, and the Russian woman had never married a man until she died. The junior Natasha became speechless. She knows that any further information would be fatal to her and might lead the angry man to kick her out of his house. When the man realized that Natasha is not willing to expose her family's hidden secret, he said to her, while his teeth biting each other, "So, you are the illegitimate daughter that Sami Shams al-Din took out of Sudan and fled with her to the land of the Ethiopians." Natasha became extremely frightened, and therefore she could not comment on the words of her angry relative. She understood the next statement of the outraged man would be crucial for her. Immediately, the incensed man stood on his feet and marched out of his house. Unfortunately, when the man recognized Natasha as a bastard daughter, his wife happened to be standing near and very carefully listening to that unpleasant conversation between her husband and her new female guest. She heard stories about girls who got impregnated before marriage and either got killed by their families or ran away and became prostitutes in other cities or countries. She also heard stories of girls impregnated out of adultery and delivered their bastard babies, and their families strangled the infants and buried their dead bodies inside their house compounds. But she has never heard of a bastard child being allowed to be born and lived in a Muslim country. For the first time in her life, she saw Bint Haram, a bastard daughter, standing face to face in front of her naked eyes. If she saw the devil with his two horns, the woman would not be so astonished and frightened. Meanwhile, the incredibly frightened wife is examining Natasha from head to feet, as if she is watching an alien that descended from the outer space or a female zombie that came out of her grave. She is considering Natasha as a female subhuman, outcast, untouchable, and spreading stinking shame which emits from a female child born out of adultery. It took the woman forever to overcome her ontological, ethical, psychological, and religious shock. After overcoming the impact of the incredible social scandal, the wife knew her husband was not going to allow the bastard girl to live in his house, especially since he has 4 unmarried girls. She felt as if Natasha were contaminated by the immoral sin of her mother, and if she were allowed to stay in her house, she would transmit her contagious adultery to her 4 virgin daughters. As his wife predicted, the angry man came back and ordered Natasha to leave his house immediately. Nonetheless, Haja Fatima challenged the decision of her brother and said to him, Natasha should not go anywhere. When her brother insisted, his sister Haja Fatima swore by Allah that if Natasha were forced to leave the house, she would take a knife and cut one of her breasts. In Sudan, it is a common practice that, if someone wants his or her decision to be accepted, the woman would threaten to cut one of her breasts, and the man would threaten to divorce his wife. "How can you expect me to keep a bastard daughter in my house?" shouted the outraged man to his older sister. "It isn't her fault," Haja Fatima responded. "But she is an accursed girl. She was born out of adultery. She has no hand on it." The woman who gave birth to her had already been punished by Allah. She was arrested, tried, convicted, and punished by the Sharia court in Khartoum. We all know that she received 200 lashes and died through those cruel whipping. Natasha is shocked when she hears the words of Haja Fatima. All this time she thought that Haja Fatima and Shama did not recognize her. She thought that Haja Fatima and Shama just believed her words that she is their relative without trying to verify her claim. But those words indicated that the old woman knew everything about her late mother and what had happened to her after she delivered her so-called female bastard baby. "She doesn't know even who her father is," resumed the man. "We all know who her father is. His daughter Shama was married to my son Tariq. Why none of you had stopped my son from marrying his daughter? His daughter is a good woman and has no hand on what her evil father did to our daughter Natasha Sami Shams al-Din. Moreover, she was not born out of adultery. Her mother Badriya was lawfully married to her father Yasser Sef al-Dawla. Also, this Natasha is a good girl and has no hand on what her mother did with the son of Sef al-Dawla. She lived with me in my late husband's house for 9 months, and I had never seen her doing anything wrong." Once again, Natasha was amazed when she came to know that Shama was her real half-sister. Moreover, she was surprised when she heard that her father's family name is Sef al-Dawla and not Sef al-Din. But Natasha wished that Haja Fatima had revealed to her that information from the time she came to stay with them. She began to weep when she remembered her friendship with her sister Shama Yasser Sef al-Dawla. Everyone thought that Natasha was weeping because someone called her a bastard daughter. Anyhow, finally, the threat of Haja Fatima that she would cut one of her breasts and her strong argument have forced her brother to allow Natasha to stay in his house against his wish and the wish of his wife. Chapter 12. An Indian film actress taking a bath. The wife of the angry man has spread the news of the bastard daughter all over her area. She informed her 4 female neighbors, and each woman of those neighbors visited other 7 houses and reported the incredible news that Bint Haram, or an illegitimate daughter that her shameless family allowed her to live until she grew up in a young woman. Therefore, every woman came to that house and saw with her own eyes the so-called bastard daughter. They discovered she is the most beautiful Sudanese girl they have ever seen in their lives. Her marvelous beauty has surpassed that of Bollywood Indian film heroines movies that they had seen in their satellite TVs. Even so, they knew no family in all over Sudan will allow their son to marry such a disgraceful bint haram. Natasha thought those Sudanese women, out of mere curiosity, have come to see her and converse with her. But she does not know those stupid ladies have come to see with their own eyes how the bint al-haram or a bastard daughter would look when she became a grown-up girl. To them, she is like an alien girl who has descended from another planet from among the billions of stars of the Milky Way. Despite her unmatchable beauty, but none of those self-righteous Sudanese women would agree to betroth her to her son. They knew and understood that no family in the whole universe would agree for their son to marry a bastard daughter, even if she is the only girl in the universe. Young men in the area heard about the astounding beauty of Natasha, and each one of them began to lust after her even though he has not seen her yet. No one of them has wished to marry her, but each one wants her on his bed. Therefore, every day those lustful young men gathered like hungry dogs waiting for the beautiful bitch to come out of that house so that they can see her unmatchable beauty and enjoy seeing her sexy body. But each day their expectations are frustrated. Finally, a couple of them came up with a dirty plan to see not only her beautiful face, but to watch her sexy body while she is fully bare naked. It so happened that one day while the so-called lovely bastard girl decided to take a bath, those wicked boys carried out their evil plot. Without knowing the trap that had been set for her, Natasha removed all of her clothes and stood bare naked in the washroom. When she stripped off all her clothes, she walked toward the mirror and looked at her image. She began to turn around and look at her reflection in the mirror. She felt pleased at the full figure standing before her and the shapeliness of her naked body. Natasha has never stood before but naked in front of a full-sized mirror. For the first time, she could see her entire body and she liked it. She felt shy and covered her face with her hands. Then, she remembered her bath. She walked toward the tub and looked at it. After that, she began to take her bath. It happened to be the family with whom the lovely Canadian girl came to stay used to live in Kuwait country before they made great wealth and returned to Sudan. As a matter of fact, the family members fled for their lives when the Iraqi troops of the tyrant Saddam Hussein invaded Kuwait and indiscriminately raped every female found, small female children as well as grown-up women. Therefore, that Sudanese family has a modern residence as beautiful as a mansion of an Arab sultan or Saudi sheikh. All their 4 daughters were born in Kuwait City. Meanwhile, Natasha stepped carefully inside the tub and turned on the tap. The warm water began to fill the tub. While the water was running, she started to check all the perfumes and makeup bottles on the shelves. She opened each bottle and smelled its scent. Each one she liked, she would spray some of it on her body. After that, she picked up something that looked like soap powder and emptied half of it into the water. She shook the water with her hands until it looked like it was covered with white bubbles and cotton balls. Then, slowly she immersed herself in the warm water. She felt a wonderful sensation. She became as happy as a small female child. Then, she began to imitate what she saw the heroines doing in the Hollywood movies. She stretched her legs and lifted them up and brought them down again. She lifted her legs up again and opened them. She separated her legs as wide as she could. She enjoyed the slight pain she felt in the area around her private parts. She did this exercise many times until she could not do it anymore. Then, she began to play with her hands and breasts. She held her 2 naked breasts with both her hands and jingled them and fondled them. That particular morning, Natasha became really naughty and stood up while she was fully naked. With soap suds covering parts of her body, she went to the mirror and began to dance and tease her image. She even has fought with her image in the mirror. She turned around and began to dance with her backside facing the mirror. She enjoyed playing with herself so much. She returned to the tub and immersed her body in the warm water again. This time, she began to paddle the water with her legs as if she was swimming. Then, she began to throw the soap suds up into the air. After playing inside the tub for a long time, Natasha remembered she had to wash her clothes and then take a bath. She came out of the tub and went to the sink with the smaller mirror. She filled the sink with water and began to wash her clothes piece by piece. She first washed her top dress, and then she cleaned her underdress. Lastly, she washed her underwear. She hung them on the curtain rod above the tub. She knew that she had to wait inside the washroom until her clothes were dry up. Once again, she began to dance and repeat her naughtiness all over again. This time, she stimulated her body beyond her ability to control it. Relishing the rare moment of privacy, she sat on the edge of the empty tub and masturbated. Natasha spent what seemed like a long time inside the washroom until the woman of the house knocked on the door and shouted at her and ordered her to come out because she wanted to use the washroom too. She quickly put on her clothes and rushed out of the washroom. Her clothes are sticking to her body because they are half dried up. At that time, all the 4 daughters of the family had already gone to their school. Even the mean husband of that angry lady had gone to his work. Therefore, only the outraged wife, Haja Fatima, and the Canadian girl at home. At any rate, the lovely and sexy Canadian girl Natasha would not have removed her clothes, stood bare naked, spread her legs wide open and exposed her private parts, danced naked, fondled her breasts, washed her bra and underwear while she is standing fully naked, or inserted her 2 fingers into her pussy and masturbated if she knew that everything she has done would be filmed on tape. The evil boys used their cell phones and shot videos of the gorgeous bastard daughter while she was taking a bath. While Natasha is playing in the nude and exploring every inch of her naked body, those boys are standing outside on chairs they smuggled from their houses and watching her and masturbating too. Then, those evil young Sudanese men showed the tapes to their friends at school. After that, they downloaded it onto the internet under the title, "An Indian Film Actress Taking a Bath." The video immediately went viral. The sensual title made millions upon millions of Indians and Pakistanis to watch it and download copies on their computers, laptops, cell phones, and other electronic devices. In all this, the victim Natasha has no idea that over 1 billion people all over the world have seen her naked breasts, pubic hair, and her other private parts. Chapter 13. My lover cannot be my husband. In the beginning, Natasha thought that she was an unwanted guest in that opulent house. But as the days passed by, she began to like her new place. The family has 4 daughters and there is no son. All daughters are teenagers. Their ages are between the scope of 15 to 19 years. Natasha was surprised when she came to know neither of them had married yet. This seemed to refute the general belief that Muslims give their female children in marriage as soon as they reach the age of puberty. Moreover, all 4 sisters are in school. Once again, this showed that not all Muslims deny education to their females. In a short time, Natasha developed good friendships with all 4 sisters. She began to help them in their studies, especially all 4 girls are facing difficulties in mathematics and the English language. Besides her friendly and pleasant nature, the highly educated Canadian girl Natasha started to help the 4 daughters in their studies, and that has made their mother and father to change their attitudes towards the Canadian girl too. So, Natasha is no more an unwanted female guest, but an important and helpful visitor. When the Canadian girl came closer to those 4 sisters, she discovered the incredible about them. She discovered that each one of them, like any other young females in the world, they have emotions and feelings, and therefore they have hearts that yearn for the love of their male counterparts. They all have secret affairs with boys and correspond with their boyfriends through writing. Some of the sisters admitted to Natasha that they saw their lovers in the street while they were on their way to school. They even confessed that sometimes they waved their hands or smiled or sent flying kisses to their boyfriends. Natasha was amazed by the daring actions of those 4 sisters. She knows it is extremely dangerous for a girl to be discovered by her father or brother that she is having a love affair with a boy before marriage. Despite the restrictions and the risk involved, those 4 unmarried girls dared to fall in love with their boyfriends. Natasha tried to find out whether those girls had any sexual contacts with their male lovers or at the least got kissed and hugged by them. All 4 girls denied any physical contact with their lovers. The only thing a girl could do in that strict society is to smile or wave her hand to her lover while she is traveling by the school bus. The school bus is meant for female students only. The only male on the bus is the driver. And the driver should be an incredibly old man and already married and has children and grandchildren. The Canadian girl is amazed when she came to know that in a Muslim society the girl could have a love affair in that way where she could not talk, greet, hug, kiss, or have any physical contact with her boyfriend, and still she called it to be love relation. The girls receive and send their romantic letters to their boyfriends through their lovers' sisters who are their classmates or neighbors. When a girl received a love letter, she would read it in the school washroom and immediately destroy and flush it or sometimes eat it up. No girl would ever take the risk of bringing her love epistle to her house. A love letter is more dangerous than returning home with drugs or alcohol bottle in her school backpack. Then, she will jot down her reply to her boyfriend while she is sitting on the toilet seat inside the washroom and smuggle it to him through his sister or female cousin sister. Sometimes, the lovers would take a calculated risk of exchanging photos in that fashion. However, if the photo passed to the wrong boy, he might use it to blackmail the girl and rape her. 2 of the 4 sisters even dared to smuggle the photos of their lovers inside their house and showed them to Natasha and then burned them and buried them in the house compound as if they had delivered unwanted bastard babies. That day those 2 sisters were exceedingly excited when they showed the photos of their lovers to Natasha and heard her praises of their lovers' good looks. That day also the 2 sisters insisted that the Canadian girl should tell them about herself when she was of their age and whether she had a male lover or not. The innocent question of those sisters resurrected in the heart of Natasha simultaneously beautiful memories and sad past. Natasha admitted that she had a boyfriend and had a wonderful friendship with him, but she had never married him. She purposely lied by saying that her boyfriend cheated on her. He fell in love with her Ethiopian girlfriend Almaz Abraha, and the 2 got married and have 2 children together which they named Nadia and Sammy. The memories of the so-called 2 bastard babies created pain in the heart of their real mother. The 4 sisters ignored the sad part of the story and wanted to know how many times Natasha had sex with her lover before he ditched her. She confessed that she hugged and kissed him many times, but she denied that she had sex with him. The 4 sisters were exceedingly surprised when Natasha said she did not sleep with her boyfriend. They told her they heard that in the West girls fall in love and sleep with their lovers before marriage and their parents don't stop them or kill them. Natasha admitted that some girls in the West do that, but she did not do it. Although she anticipated their reactions and answers, still the Canadian girl asked the 4 sisters to tell her what would happen to a girl if she slept with her boyfriend before marriage and got impregnated by him out of adultery. The sisters are astonished by the question of Natasha. Then all 4 sisters instantaneously gave their answers as if each one were reading her answer from a paper in front of her eyes. Her father will open her pregnant stomach with his big knife and then kill her Wad al-Haram baby first, and after that, he would cut her neck, said the oldest sister. Her father will cut her into bits and pieces, said the youngest sister. Her mother will pour kerosene on her defiled body and burn her into ashes, said daughter number 3. Her brother shall strangle her to death or cut with his knife her unclean body and then throw her dirty corpse in the jungle for the wild animals to eat it up, said daughter number 2. Natasha is not dumbfounded by hearing the brutal descriptions of honor killings of the 4 unmarried sisters they have mentioned because her family's tragedies stood as strong testimonies for what they have answered. She knows her Russian grandmother was stabbed to death in honor killing, and her mother had been scourged 200 lashes by the Islamic court for committing twice adultery and delivering 2 bastard babies. She got brutally killed for those 2 moral mistakes. Natasha did the same moral mistake with her boyfriend, and no one killed her in Canada. After that, the 4 sisters insisted that the Canadian girl should tell them why she did not marry another boy. At first, Natasha refused to give a reason, but when they insisted to tell them, she lied to them and told them that after her boyfriend left her and married her Ethiopian girlfriend, she decided not to have another male lover. When Natasha said her last sentence, the sisters saw some tears falling on her cheeks. In order to comfort her, the sisters told her that all girls in Sudan would not be allowed to marry their lovers. They also said that they knew for sure that their father is going to give them in marriage to their male cousins or other boys according to his choice. Natasha is astonished when she heard the four sisters saying that they knew for sure they are not going to marry their lovers and still fell in love with them and continued their love affairs until they would be wedded to their male cousins. For the Canadian girl, this sounded like a riddle, a girl falling in love with a boy while she is certain she is not going to marry that boy. Whether it is a coincidence, divine prophecy, or a mere fate, a couple of weeks later one of those sisters, the 19 years old, has been betrothed by her male cousin and her father accepted the betrothal and therefore she is officially engaged to him. The news of her engagement is not heartbreaking or something unexpected by her. Her marriage is scheduled to take place in a couple of months. But then the wedding is postponed for 6 months because the girl is in school and her fiancé wanted her to complete her grade 12. Nowadays, it became a prerequisite in Sudan that every boy wants to marry a girl who knows how to read the newspapers. Although the oldest daughter is engaged and her wedding date is fixed, she still continued her secret love affair with her boyfriend. Natasha asked her what she was going to do after her marriage. Would she continue that secret love affair and hence cheat on her husband or break the friendship with her lover and break his heart too? The girl told Natasha that no girl in Sudan could continue her love affair after she got married. The foreign girl tried to find out why the girl should sacrifice her love after marriage. The girl did not give any convincing reason. She just said it is not the right thing for a girl to have a lover after having a husband. The other three sisters backed the words of their sister and said in unison, "My lover cannot be my husband." Natasha did not accept that vague answer because she understood that the married Muslim girl has been made to believe from childhood that her body is not her own, but it belonged to her husband. In other words, she is sold in marriage by her parents and bought and enslaved by her husband. That is why in Sudan, when the man gets married, he will say to his friends, "I have bought a woman." The supreme Muslim cleric Abu Hamid al-Ghazali defined marriage for generations of Muslims. Marriage is a form of slavery. The woman is man's slave, and her duty therefore is absolute obedience to the husband in all that he asks of her person. Natasha guessed that the fears of those girls to continue their love affairs after their marriages came from the cruel punishment of honor killing for infidelity in marriage. The greatest punishment in Islam is that of cheating in marriage. According to Sharia law, the punishment of the married woman who commits adultery with another man is stoning to death, whereas the unmarried girl, if she commits adultery, will get 100 lashes. The adulterous wife will be buried in the ground until her neck and stoned to death by men. In all Muslim countries, if the husband caught his wife having sex with another man and killed her, he would not be put to death. The man might get 6 months imprisonment if he murdered in honor killing his wife, his daughter, or his sister. On the other hand, according to Sharia, if the woman found her husband having sex with another woman in her bed, she is not allowed to kill him because that woman might be his second wife. He is not required by the Sharia law to inform his wife that he married another woman besides her without informing her. Lastly, the four sisters asked the Canadian girl whether she had fallen in love with another girl and had sex with her. Of course, Natasha did not only deny such a relationship, but asked the sisters how a girl and another girl can have sex together. Once again, the girls felt surprised to hear her question. They said they heard some girls in their school claimed that they have girlfriends and said they are having sex together. They said the kind of sex they practice together is not risky because it doesn't make any one of them pregnant with an illegitimate baby. Natasha knew there are lesbians in the West who fall in love and marry their female lovers, and also there are guys who have male lovers and sometimes have gay marriage. But she pretended to know nothing of sex between lovers of the same sex. After that, the four sisters asked the Canadian girl to tell them whether sometimes she practices masturbation in the washroom. Natasha admitted that she does it when she is in the mood. However, the four sisters said masturbation is more dangerous to the Muslim girl than real sex with a boy because the girl might accidentally break her vagina's hymen while inserting her fingers inside her virgin pussy. Such a girl for sure will be slain in honor killing by her groom on their first wedding night when he discovers that she is not a virgin. At the end of that interesting private discussion, the big sister asked Natasha whether she got circumcised when she was a small girl. The Canadian girl said she had not been circumcised, and she said to the four girls that female genital mutilation is harmful to the girl and would not benefit her in any way. The four sisters are not surprised to hear her answer because they were told by some of their girlfriends in school that in Europe and America the Muslim parents will go to jail if they circumcise their daughters. However, they said the girl cannot control her sexual desire if she has not been circumcised when she was a child. No matter how much the uncircumcised Canadian girl has tried to convince them what they were told by their mothers is wrong, she couldn't succeed. They said they are all got circumcised in childhood and they are happy about it. Natasha remembered the religious justifications her sister Shama and Haja Fatima quoted to her when she tried to convince the mother of that small girl not to circumcise her female child. Therefore, for the time being she ignored the serious issue of female genital mutilation and began to talk with the four sisters about something else. Chapter 14. The discriminative misogynistic teachings in a Muslim girls' school. Through the four sisters, Natasha has been introduced and connected to one of the most popular girls' schools in the city. The headmistress of that school heard about the highly educated Canadian girl through those four sisters and invited her to come and assist in her school. She requested her to help the higher classes in the English language and mathematics. Natasha accepted the invitation because she understood that it would expose her to a big number of Muslim females and help her to learn about women in a Muslim society. So far, her fieldwork is confined to a small circle of Muslim women in those two houses she has lived in. Therefore, teaching in a girls' school is a golden opportunity for her because she would meet many Muslim female students and learn more about their problems. But she decided not to reveal her academic research to the female teachers and their female students. In Sudan and most of the Muslim countries, there is no coeducation. Males and females would be segregated from each other from the time of their childhood in their houses. In the house, the men have their separate section, and women have their private partition. Likewise, when they go to school, the males have their own separate schools, and the females have their all-girls school too. Those schools are not just kept apart like public washrooms, males and females, while they are neighboring each other. The boys' schools and the girls' schools are located exceedingly far from each other. For example, if the boys' school is at the eastern end of the city, then the girls' school would be built at the western end of the city. In the girls' school, you would not find any males, including even animal males. Everybody would be feminine, the female students, teachers, cleaners, and food sellers. There is a saying in Sudan, separate the egg from the rock and the female from the male. This saying came from the belief that if those two opposite sexes come close to each other, something terrible would happen and destroy the life of that girl and her family too. Sometimes, if there is a boarding school for girls, then the guard would be an armed old man with a Kalashnikov, and woe to any male who comes close to that taboo school. He will be shot dead, and his blood will be upon his shoulders. Regardless of those restrictions and high risks, still the Muslim girls and boys figured ways to meet and fall in love. The university highly educated Canadian girl has begun her volunteer teaching lessons in that famous girls' school, and in a short time she won the love of her female students. She is loved and favored because she is the only female teacher who refused to use the whip or slap and kick her female students. The other female teachers never entered their classrooms without carrying long whips in their hands. In a Muslim country, physical abuse such as scourging the students is not considered an offense. On the contrary, it is considered an important means of discipline. The female teacher can beat her female students for poor performance, making noise, not dressing properly, having long nails or dirty hands or legs, not properly combing the hair, not listening, talking back to her in an inappropriate manner, bullying other female classmates, and other trivial mistakes. Due to her loving nature and refusal to use the whip, Natasha has become exceedingly loved and trusted by all her female students. Many girls visited her office and shared their problems with her. Therefore, in a short time, the Canadian girl became a teacher as well as a student counselor for her girls. Most of those girls have similar complaints. They collectively complained that they had been physically abused by their fathers and brothers in their houses, and likewise their female teachers often beat them in the school. Natasha saw the ugly scars of beatings and cruel punishments on the bodies of those girls. Some girls told her that their mothers punished them by pinching them very painfully in sensitive areas in their bodies. There is a belief among Muslim women in Sudan that, if the girl has not been repeatedly pinched by her mother in her thighs and in the area around her vagina, she will become like a wild animal and also extremely rebellious girl when she grows up. Although Natasha has been enrolled by that prestigious girls' school to teach English and mathematics still, she is able to have access to the religious curriculum that all girls daily learn in their Islamic class. Islam is the only religion that has been allowed to be taught in that public school. Although there are some Southern Catholic Christian girls and other Coptic Orthodox Christian girls still, they are not allowed to learn their religion in a girls' public school. During the Islamic class, those Christian girls will be asked to go out of the classroom and sit somewhere until the class is over. Natasha felt sad to see those Christian girls have been discriminated against. Still, she remained quiet and did not tell anyone that she is Christian too. All girls, including the female teachers and the headmistress, are thinking that she is a Muslim like them. Sometimes, those few Christian girls are either asked to leave the classroom during teaching Islam or encouraged by their female teachers or classmates to remain in the classroom and learn Islam with the other Muslim girls. Of course, this is against their family's wishes or knowledge. In that way, some of those Christian girls got brainwashed and secretly converted to Islam. Most of the curriculum is based on the teachings of the popular Muslim scholar Abu Hamid al-Ghazali. The Imam Abu Hamid al-Ghazali is the greatest Muslim theologian ever existed after the Prophet Muhammad. He is called the Defender of Islam. He has written around 1,000 books in the fiqh or sciences of Islam. In his well-renowned book, The Revival of the Religious Sciences, Al-Ghazali defines the woman's role as 1. She should stay at home and get on with her spinning. 2. She can go out only in emergencies. 3. She must not be well informed, nor must she be communicative with her neighbors and only visit them when necessary. 4. She should take care of her husband and respect him in his presence and his absence and seek to satisfy him in everything. 5. She must not leave her house without his permission, and if given his permission, she must leave secretly. 6. She should put on old clothes and take deserted streets and alleys, avoid markets, and make sure that a stranger does not hear her voice, her footsteps, smell her, or recognize her. 7. She must not speak to a male friend of her husband, even if she is in need of his help. 8. Her sole worry should be her care about her reproductive organs, her home as well as her prayers and her fast. 9. If her husband's male friend calls when her husband is absent, she must not open the door nor reply to him in order to safeguard her vagina. 10. She should accept what her husband gives her as sufficient sexual needs at any moment. 11. She should be clean and ready to satisfy her husband's sexual needs at any moment. The great Islamic theologian then warns all men to be careful of women, for their guile is immense and their mischief is noxious. They are immoral and mean creatures. Like a true Muslim cleric, Al-Ghazali states, it is a fact that all the trials and misfortunes which befall men come from women. In his book, Counsel for Kings, the defender of Islam sums up all that a woman must endure because of Eve's misbehavior in the Garden of Eden. When Eve ate the fruit which God had forbidden to her from the tree in paradise, the Lord cursed women with 17 punishments. 1. Menstruation. 2. Childbirth. 3. Separation from mother and father and marriage to a stranger. 4. Pregnancy. 5. Not having control over her own person. 6. A lesser share in inheritance, 1/2 of the male as per the Quran. 7. Her inability to divorce her husband and the ability of her husband to divorce her at any time. 8. It's being lawful for men to have 4 wives, but for a woman to have only 1 husband. 9. The fact that she must stay secluded in the house. 10. The fact that she must keep her head covered inside the house. 11. The fact that 2 women's testimony has to be set against the testimony of 1 man. 12. The fact that she must not go out of the house unless accompanied by a husband or a near male relative. 13. The fact that men take part on Friday and feast day prayers and funerals while women do not. 14. Her disqualification of becoming a leader, imama, khalifa, or any other form of leadership and judgeship. 15. The fact that merit has 1,000 components, only one of which is attributable to women, while 999 are attributable to men. 16. The fact that if women are profligate, they will be given twice as much torment as the rest of the community at the resurrection day. 17. The fact that if their husbands die, they must observe a waiting period of 3 months and 10 days before remarrying. The idea that a woman's sole purpose and duty is to stay at home to satisfy the sexual appetite of her husband is again summed up in Al-Ghazali's book The Proof of Islam. Al-Ghazali is still so highly revered amongst many Muslim clerics, and because of that he is called the Proof of Islam or the Defender of Islam. The most influential thinker of Islam, Al-Ghazali, molded and passed the minds of uncountable numbers of Muslims and continues today to influence the minds of 1.5 billion of Muslims with his opinions on women's character. If you relax the woman's whip a tiny bit, she will take you and bolt wildly. Their deception is awesome, and their wickedness is contagious. Bad character and feeble mind are their predominant traits. Every female student is made to learn and believe in those misogynistic teachings, which have awfully bad consequences in forming her character. Through her counseling sessions and other contacts with those female students, Natasha discovered that all the girls in that school are suffering from low self-esteem. They have been taught to believe that as females they have no rights on everything belonging to them, even their selves and bodies. Every girl is taught from the Islamic authentic books that as a daughter she is property to her father, and for that reason, he has the right to sell her in marriage to any man he liked as a wife. She is a slave to her husband, and because of that he could do to her whatever he wished, and after her death, Allah would cast her into hellfire because she was born as a woman. Perhaps the most accurate accounts in which Muslim women have been placed by the Islamic heritage can be found in the writings of the Egyptian Muslim liberal thinker, Dr. Sa'id Mahmud al-Kimni. In his book, Rab al-Zaman, The Lord of This Time, under an article entitled, Women in Religious Heritage and Legends, which he delivered as a lecture to the People's Progressive Women's Union, Al-Kimni considered the Islamic heritage responsible for degrading Muslim women, citing Al-Kimni 96, page 219. According to him, the religious heritage made the woman believe she has been created from a bent rib, deficient in religion and intellect. Her testimony equals half of a man's. Her inheritance is half of a man's. She cannot divorce her husband. Al-Kimni 96, page 220. The Muslim woman believes herself to be a satanic creature, and therefore she cannot control her sexual desires. Al-Kimni 96, page 221. According to the Islamic heritage, woman succumbs to her lust and not to her intellect. She has a natural tendency to cheat on her husband, because she is one of the 4 that cannot be trusted: money, sultan, time, and woman. Al-Kimni 96, page 220. The woman has been created for the comfort and enjoyment of her husband. In that way, the religious heritage made the Muslim woman believe herself to be a mere pussy, and therefore she is called horma, or taboo, and haram, or forbidden. Al-Kimni 96, page 221. Therefore, if she keeps her faith and her vagina and gives enjoyment to her husband who is her master, she will enter heaven. Al-Kimni 96, page 220. Woman's faith cannot be perfect except by her complete obedience and submission to her husband, and such obedience will secure to her a place in heaven as a prostitute among the many harems of the man, or his 72 virgins of paradise. Al-Kimni 96, page 221. Accordingly, the Canadian girl has become extremely outraged when she read those Islamic religious books which teach misogynistic teachings and discriminate against women. Chapter 15. The Abominable Blasphemy. The Canadian girl found it difficult to remain silent and inactive while witnessing those young Muslim women have been brainwashed and abused and deprived of their rights as human beings, and their minds have been filled by those wrong notions and negative teachings about women. Although the Canadian teacher is aware of the high risk involved still, she began to express her concerns, which created some doubts in the minds of those girls who frequent their visits to her office and seek her counseling and advice. She began to encourage them to question their Islamic female teachers about those misogynistic teachings that they learned about themselves. In fact, Natasha is incredibly careful while she is creating those doubts in the minds of her female students. She always compared the beautiful values that had been instilled in her mind when she was a student in Ethiopia and Canada with the misogynistic teachings those girls are learning in their school. For instance, she told them that while she was studying in school, her male and female teachers were not allowed to beat their male and female students whatever mistake they might do. She showed them that there are other ways to discipline the male and female students. The female teacher could punish a rebellious student by asking her to stand in a corner by herself or sending her to a student counselor or inviting her parents to school and talk to them about the wrong behavior of their daughter. But no female teacher should be permitted to corporeally punish her female student for her poor performance, not dressing properly, her school uniform is dirty, not listening or making noise in class, talking back in an inappropriate manner, bullying her female classmates, or for other silly mistakes. In this way, the Canadian volunteer female teacher encouraged her female students to tell their parents that they could discipline them without physically beating them. She even told them to refer to the example of her upbringing and schooling in Ethiopia and Canada. Natasha even talked to some female teachers about the bad consequences of the physical punishment of the female students. She told them that physical beatings would traumatize the characters of those female students and in the long run turn them into docile and coward girls with many other mental disorders. Nonetheless, her words and advice fell on deaf ears. Some of those female teachers mocked her and said, "That is why women in the West are so free and rebellious and living immoral lives." They quoted to her the common belief of Muslims that in the West the girl can sleep with the man without marriage, woman can marry another woman, and the man can live with another man and both practice sodomy openly. And girls and boys drink alcohol, and also women can smoke cigarettes everywhere. Sometimes, the girls have sex with their fathers and brothers and boys sleep with their mothers and sisters just like animals do. The father would go to jail if he beat his rebellious daughter. A husband will be locked behind bars for life if he killed his wife whom he caught her in bed with another man. A girl can get pregnant out of adultery and deliver her bastard baby and give him to her parents to bring him up. There are no fears of honor killings in the hearts of those uncircumcised infidel girls who sleep with guys like prostitutes do. Even the court will not punish the girl if she became pregnant 10 times without the sanctity of marriage bond. One female teacher went to the extent of telling the Canadian girl Natasha that 99% of the Christian Westerners were born bastards or illegitimate children. She then said, "People in the West don't believe in marriage anymore but like to practice sex and bear children just like the animals do." Regardless of that negative responses of the female teachers, still the Canadian teacher in short time has become successful in making her female students to see their rights as human beings and rebel against those misogynistic teachings. Some of those female students began to question their female religious teachers, and some talked to their parents about the bad consequences of physical abuses. But in that strict society, such behaviors have been interpreted as rebellion against the good Islamic mores and values. Some of those Islamic female teachers began to complain to the headmistress about the questions their female students are asking regarding the teachings of Islam about Muslim women. The school authority interrogated those girls and tried to find out why they are asking those questions. The girls could not convince the school authority why they are asking those anti-Islamic questions. Some of those probing questions were so serious until the school authority interpreted them as blasphemy. For example, those girls have raised objections to the verses of the Quran in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3, which allows the man to marry 4 wives at the same time, and the verse in Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 34, which allows the husband to beat his disobedient wife, the father can scourge his rebellious daughter, and the brother can harshly discipline his sister, and in Surah Al-Talaq 65, verse 4, which permits the man to marry an underage girl who has not yet reached the age of puberty. Some bold female students said to their female teachers that beating them is wrong and in the long run will have bad consequences. The The school authority kicked those girls out and told them not to come back until they brought their parents. When the girls brought their mothers, the headmistress informed them what their daughters are saying. The mothers agreed with the school authority that their daughters have no right to ask those questions and should be forced to recant their doubts about the teachings of the Quran on women. The school authority agreed to give the girls a second chance if they agreed to recant their doubts and repent in front of all female students, and then be scourged 30 lashes each for their blasphemies. All the rebellious female students accepted the decision of the school except one girl. Consequently, that girl has been expelled out of the school. The other rebellious girls have been brought in front of the whole school and forced to repent on bended knees and recant their blasphemies, and then subjected to very painful punishment. Each girl has been lifted up through her hands and legs by 8 big girls, and then the Islamic female teacher has given her 30 lashes on her back and buttocks. While they are punishing them in that cruel way, each girl is screaming on top of her voice from the terrible pain and begging the female teacher to stop scourging her. In that cruel way, all the so-called blasphemous and rebellious girls have been punished and silenced. The Canadian volunteer female teacher Natasha felt terribly guilty when she witnessed the humiliation and cruel scourging of her female students. She held herself responsible for the physical and mental tortures those innocent girls went through. But she knew and understood that if she admitted that she is the one who encouraged those girls to rebel against those misogynistic teachings and cruel corporeal punishments of the school and their parents, then she would shoot herself in the foot and put herself in serious trouble. Although no one in the girls' school could be able to trace the main source from where those bold girls learned their doubts, the expelled girl became the lead that directed her family to Natasha. It happened to be that girl came from a polygamist home. Her father has 4 wives and many children. He is ruling his wives and children with an iron fist. Her mother, and she had suffered many evils from false accusations and malicious gossip created by the other rival wives and their daughters. Due to that, many times her mother and she got physically abused by her father. For that reason, she abhorred polygamy, and when Natasha planted the seed of doubts in her mind about that evil practice, she expressed her hatred of polygamy in a bold way. During her Islamic religious class, she bluntly expressed her doubts to her female teacher. She told her teacher, in Sudan, if the husband has a wife and marries a second wife, the Sudanese Muslim society will call the second wife Aldera, which means the female evildoer or the woman who brings evil to the first wife. Even in Egypt, the Islamic society nicknamed the second, third, or fourth wife Aldora, which also means the person who does evil to a close relative. Then she asked her teacher why Islam allows the husband to bring to his first wife another woman who is called by the Muslim society the evildoer. Then, that bold female student asked, is there any man in Sudan can sleep peacefully in his house if he knows his wife is in bed that night with another man? Of course, there is no husband in the whole world will tolerate that his wife can have sex with another man with his full knowledge and consent. If the man can't stomach polyandry, then why the wife must agree to share her husband with another woman? Every other girl, including the female teacher, found the girls' arguments are true and very convincing. Even so, every one of those girls found herself facing a serious dilemma. On the one hand, if she said polygamy is evil and gross injustice against the wife, then she would contradict her holy Quran, which sanctions the practice. On the other hand, if she went against fact and accepted polygamy as good because it satisfies the sexual need of the man, then she would agree for practice which she knew it is evil and gross injustice against her as a wife. So, no female student dared to agree or disagree with the bold girl. The Islamic female teacher got so angry and said to her student, "Don't say that again. Never ever use society to judge a license written in the Quran. This license is based on a verse in our holy Quran." Then, she referred to the Surah Al-Nisa 4, verse 3. According to this verse, every Muslim man can have 2, 3, or 4 wives at the same time. Even the infallible Prophet Muhammad and his companions had practiced polygamy. After referring to the religious authority, the female teacher told her female student, We cannot question anything if it is mentioned in the Holy Quran and the Sunnah of our Prophet Muhammad. May the prayers and peace of Allah be upon him. Therefore, neither you nor me nor any other Muslim has the right to question, condemn, or rebel against polygamy. However, the girl said to her Islamic female teacher, "Still I see polygamy as gross injustice towards women, and its practice brings so many evils to the rival wives and their children." On hearing that blasphemous statement, the Islamic teacher kicked her student out of her class and reported the serious matter to the headmistress. The headmistress considered the statement of the girl as an open blasphemy and asked her to bring her parent. When the so-called blasphemous girl brought her mother and asked by the school authority to recant her doubts about polygamy and repent, she refused to do so. The headmistress considered the female student's doubts came from Satan the devil. Therefore, she loudly read to her Ayat al-Kursi, or verse of the throne in Surah Baqarah 2, verse 255, and rebuked the devil, and then once again ordered the girl to repent and rescind her blasphemous statement. Still, the bold girl has refused to withdraw her statement or repent for speaking the truth. Finally, in front of her mother and her Islamic female teacher, the bold girl has been declared by the headmistress an apostate and rebellious female student and thrown her out of her school. The trouble of that girl did not end by just being expelled from school. Other girls spread the news about her abominable blasphemy, which led to her dismissal all over the city. Everyone heard the news considered her to be an apostate from Islam, who is supposed to be put to death. The news of her blasphemy spread with the speed of light in the city until finally reached the ears of the rival wives of her mother. The rival wives passed the news to their common husband. On hearing the abominable blasphemy of his daughter, the father has become extremely outraged. When he questioned his daughter and she boldly admitted her blasphemy and her dismissal from school, the furious father strangled his blasphemous daughter to death. The murder of the apostate daughter by her Muslim father has become a police case. When the police stepped in, the mother of the deceased girl has been arrested and harshly interrogated by the police extortionists. At first, the police thought that the mother was the one who taught her daughter those doubts about polygamy. The mother denied the accusation and said her daughter learned her doubts from other girls in the school. Then the police took their investigations to that prestigious girls' school and interrogated those girls again. The interrogations involved the headmistress and the Islamic female teacher. The initial investigations of that serious matter led to mass arrest. All those girls who were accused of blasphemy and punished by the school authority have been arrested. Even the headmistress and the Islamic female teacher have been detained under the charges of not dealing with the abominable blasphemy in the appropriate way, and that by not informing the right religious authority. As women, they have no religious authority to pass their judgment on a matter of mass blasphemy and apostasy. The blasphemous girls have been once again badly battered and tortured by some cruel policewomen. Through their harsh interrogations of those female students, the police could be able to find out from where they learned their blasphemies and doubts. Accordingly, the Canadian volunteer female teacher Natasha has been arrested, handcuffed, and dragged like a dangerous female criminal from inside that prestigious school by the cops and charged of instigation of apostasy and blasphemy.